Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Support Stalker Experiment, a series of tests and videos and math lessons I'm putting together about that infamous archetype, the Stalker, here on the City of Heroes. Homecoming servers, we're taking a look at whether or not we can turn these bad boys of City of Villains into a helpful, friendly, supporting character that's going to save your team. And today we're taking a look at the second Stalker in the series, and this one is known as Dead Cell, the drain before the pain. All these stalkers that I'm talking about in this series were actually conceived originally by our good friend Kathy, Chatty Kathy, or ChatGPT as some of you call her. And what I had done was about a month ago when I was conceiving this idea, I pitched to her this concept of a support stalker, this staying with the team, using their powers to debuff, control, and help keep the team alive rather than just sneaking away and clicking some glowy. And so what I did is I went into the stalkers options for primary and secondary power sets as well as their epics, and I gave these power sets with those controls, with those features of debuff, example electrical melee, and I fed them over to ChatGPT and I said, hey, from these options, can you combine or come up with different combinations, different synergies that would fit my needs and justify why or how they would work together. And one of the options that she came up with was Dead Cell. So hey, who's Dead Cell? What are we talking about? Origin. This is also generated by Chatty, by Kathy. Real name unknown, formerly listed as DC11, no relation, in Cray Industries sealed records. Powers, electric melee, bioarmor, and Mew mastery. Origin science. Backstory: Dead Cell wasn't born, he was synthesized. Formerly an unregistered petty thief in St. Marshall, he was captured and offered a pardon by a Black Ops research branch loosely affiliated with Cray Industries. The catch? Participation in a covert hybridization program that aimed to engineer living batteries by fusing human neurology with the conductive bioarchitecture of high voltage aquatic predators. The subject, designated DC-11, received radical nervous system transplants, cortical overlays, and glandular implants drawn from electric eel genomes. His spinal cord was restructured with bioconductive polymers, and an internal current regulator was fused to his sternum. But the process overloaded. During stabilization, he discharged violently, frying the facility's power grid and escaping into the storm-flooded outskirts of Capo Diablo. Surveillance last saw him wading into the water, voltage still crackling across his shoulders, eyes lit like open transformers. Now calling himself Dead Cell, he emerges from the urban dark, where systems run too hot. His presence drains power, halts momentum, and short circuits control, not to destroy, but to regulate, to balance the current. And then she also pitched some RP stuff, some personality and traits. And I like this because it gives you some flavor for this character that makes them a little bit more real for you. And so as you're playing, I think it helps to come up with the concept and the costume and really, get your teeth into who this character is if they existed. So his personality is this: blunt, sardonic, and practical. He speaks in electrical metaphors when annoyed or focused. He doesn't care about laws or causes, only flow. If power is being abused, he'll flatten the curve. He sees high level tech and energy users as hoarders, and he's the audit. Glitches tech in his vicinity unless calibrated, and he hates elevators. I'm not sure why she threw that in there, but it sounds cool. Maybe because he's not grounded? I don't know. but it's interesting. You kind of think of all the elevators in the game. You got to go up and down. So I can kind of imagine that sort of being. Again, I'm not a big RP guy, but it kind of just makes it funny if you think about if you were, and all that RP is your character's going up an elevator, you're cursing it. Then the concept. So we had the initial image concept from. This is generated by Dolly here, which is also part of OpenAI's platform. And I tried to match that here in game with this character here. So this is what Dead Cell looks like when he's not hiding, and his appearance is using a lot of the bioluminescent costume pieces. Bioluminescent yellow and deep blue skin, striped in high voltage patterns, almost organic circulate. He radiates a hazy corona of blue electricity, strongest during combat surges. His muscular appearance, or his musculature, appears sculpted by current, twitch reactive and hypercharged. Eyes and chest glow faintly at rest, spark violently when overclocked in combat. Just some cool descriptions she came up with, and all I did is I fed this image into chatting, and I was like, "Hey, I need to have an appearance, a concept. How would you describe this guy?" Playstyle: the drain before the pain. Dead Cell is a power disruption stalker. So that's his main thing. So unlike Zaus, who I ran first, was my one and only buffing shield guardian type of stalker. This guy is the first of 6 that are going to follow debuffing focus or control focus. So he's a power disruption stalker. He's going to disable enemies through sleep chaining, or what I'm calling stutter stacking, and endurance drain recovery suppression. He's going to leave foes energy starved and wide open for cleanup strikes. He thrives in tight, chaotic battles where control is slipping because that's where he shines brightest. So he's going to leverage a lot of his, what some people would call useless, debuff and controls, endurance draining, these little sleeps that your punches kick out. And there's also sleep in your bio armor, FYI. But if you start picturing all that writhing from the electrical attacks, the slow minus endurance minus recovery leeching he's doing, and the popping of sleeps as well as some placate, he's going to constantly be pulsing these interruptions in the enemy flow. That's what I'm talking about here by this stutter stacking, the sleep chaining, this disruption. He's going to have an energy chokehold. It's going to suppress the stamina regeneration and endurance recovery in waves, sleep looping. He's going to trigger the stutter fall behavior, putting the AoE sleeps out there, putting his single target sleeps out there. Biological resilience, bio armor is going to let him absorb a lot of hits and do a lot of healing and regeneration himself. He's not going to have a ton of like defense or resistance. He's going to rely upon hit points. Crowd disruption. He's going to use some knockback, knockdown, to prevent enemy formations from sustaining threat. And he's going to slowly be leeching and draining their endurance so that they run out of resources. They don't have any more energy left to attack if the fight drags out more than a few seconds. His role, it's what you would call soft lock. He's a control stalker. And he's going to prime the battlefield for others by denying the momentum to the enemies and staying deep in their fray, getting them to kind of focus on him, which is going to put him at high risk. I think he's going to be best used with AoE heavy teams, and this is what Kathy's also suggesting, that are going to benefit from enemies grouped around him that are being suppressed, or having like burst or chain attackers who are going to be able to just punish weakened groups, especially somebody, let's say, electrical blasting. Or if you have just a mixed role team and you need somebody who can manipulate the tempo of the enemy. His theme, Dead Cell, is the fail-safe fuse walking, a rogue power sink engineered to weaponize electrical physiology. Then he was discarded when he overloaded. He doesn't fight to lead or follow. No, no, no. He fights to flatten the line between chaos and overload. When the grid gets unstable, Dead Cell shows up to reroute the current. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so a lot of this was pitched by Kathy. So we have, our original combo of powers. We have our story. We've got our picture. We've got our appearance. We got the personality. She's suggesting a play style. Lots of different things came up from her suggestions. All right, let's get down to the build. So what's going on with this concept with this character in mechanical terms? So we're going to get into the powers I picked, the slotting choices, and see how that ties into or makes this theme even possible. So I'm going to go ahead and pull open my mids build, share that with you guys. 1 second, here we go. There we are. And we'll talk you through it and see if you like the flavor I'm spitting or not. All right, so take a look at this. I don't usually do this, but I've taken every power in both the primary and secondary of electrical melee and bio armor. And side note, by the way, this is one of the, I don't know if it's a problem or not, but one of the things that the homecoming team has done, and a lot of people praise them for this, but I'm not so sure it's a great idea, but they're making every power good, and I know that kind of sounds like, what the hell's wrong with that? The problem is this. That's 18 powers. Meanwhile, you've got all these other pools, 4 power pools and your ancillary pool that you also can choose from. But if you take every single power in both of your sets, and the reason you have to take every single power is because they're, generally pretty good, but also because they have distributed features amongst the various powers that you kind of need to take, especially in your armors, where it wasn't always that way. There was always a couple of skippable things that a lot of people skip, but now it's like everything is good, or there's something you need in all these powers, so you're kind of screwed. You kind of have to take everything in a lot of circumstances. So it really limits you by what you could do pool wise, unless you're just like, F it, I don't need armor set, or, hey, I don't need electrical melee, I only need 1 or 2 powers. There are some people that build that way, but I don't know. Anyway, side note. So let's take a look. I've taken everything, and then I've taken almost everything from my Mew Mastery as well. So I've got pretty much no room for anything in the pools, aside from a couple of powers that are more mechanically favorable rather than interesting thematically or concept wise. So let's go ahead and take a look at my slotting choices and why I picked what I picked and why I put in there what I put in there. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about overarching theme before I get into the exact selections of what power. So if we go ahead and take a look at City of Data, kind of see what I was going for. So if you take a look here, this is electrical melee, and the reason it was chosen is because you have minus endurance in charged brawl, havoc punch, Jacob's ladder, which is a cone. You got chain induction, which is a chaining like AoE. You've got it in thunder strike as well. So that's 5 of the 9 powers are gonna give you some minus endurance. That was my initial, kind of big idea here was, making a sapping, draining stalker. But then the more I got into this build, the more I saw a lot of other potential. And that's the other angle. And I've always wanted to do this. It's the sleep. If you look, Charge Brawl, Havoc Punch, Jacob's Ladder, I don't think the other ones. Yeah, those 3 powers all have a sleep component to it. Now, I know what you're saying. Sleep, that's a waste because people just wake up, which is true. And the same idea of the minus endurance. Minus endurance is only good if you get somebody down to 0, which is really hard. You got to keep beating on them, and then you need to have a minus recovery on top of that to keep them there. So these 2 things kind of on their own really aren't going to do much or seem that impressive. But if you can start to stack this stuff and not necessarily stack magnitude of sleep, but just keep hitting them with sleeps. Because imagine this: sleep, wake up, sleep, wake up, sleep, wake up. You just keep hitting and cycling through your sleep attacks. Even as they kind of come to from the first sleep, you hit them again, they're gonna come, go back to sleep again. And meanwhile, you're starting to pile on the minus endurance on top of that, so that you're chaining together, you're stacking together what I'm calling like a stuttering effect, because you're gonna get some of the writhing. If you ever see the writhing animation of targets that are hit with electrical attacks, that buys you like a half a second that I don't think is accounted for by any sort of control, numbers or whatever. I don't think it's really like a control per se, but it's there. Then you've got the sleeping. So if you kind of shock them for a second and then they sleep for a second and then they wake up, you've drained them a little bit, you hit them again, and then they lather, rinse, repeat. That's kind of what I'm seeing I can do here with just these, opening attacks. You can then put in the last two powers here, Thunder Strike, which has a big knockback and disorient chance on top of the minus endurance. That's some soft control, some hard control actually. And then Lightning Rod is also huge, a big old knockback. You teleport in and slam into people, explode, and they drop. And I think, let me confirm, Lightning Rod, does this have minus endurance as well? Doesn't seem like it does. Just has the knockback effect. So, yeah, just has the knockback. So anyway, you've got some knocking back and some potential stuns here that you also can get into, and the chances. I'm trying to see the chance for the stun. Let me make sure the PvP stuff is off because I don't really care about that. So the chances for stunning, it's like a 50% chance. Yeah, so 50-50 chance mag 3 stun. So you can knock out a target, smash your foes, the power of the lightning bolt, pummeled victim takes tremendous damage, disoriented. Any nearby foes can be knocked down. So I think the stun only applies to the primary target. And then the nearby foes can take some damage and get knocked down. And the knockdown area of effect is what? Do you do 7-foot range? No, 10. Here it is, radius 10 foot. So we got a 10-foot radius, 10 targets can be knocked down. So I think that's pretty decent. So you can kind of just, stack all that stuff together. You can start to see where I'm going here. So we're sleeping, draining, sleep, drain, sleep, drain. Knock them down, drain them, stun them, drain them, knock them all down, and as they're getting up, you're hitting them. So this is the idea, just drain and pain with electrical melee over and over again. Just keep cycling through your attacks. But of course, there's more. That's the primary. What about the secondary? Because you got to get more out of these builds than just what your primary is going to give you. So let's go ahead and take a look at your secondary. Let me move my face here. I think, yeah. So you got adaptation, which I did take, and what this does, if you're not familiar with bio armor, is it's a power you get at level 16, and it gives you these 3 option versions that you can activate as toggles: defensive, efficient, and offensive. And your selection ties into these specials you're seeing listed after a lot of your different attacks, or sorry, a lot of your different armor. So it activates different functions or features for each of your armors. So that's one thing, but that's not why I took bio armor or why bio armor was suggested here. If you look at it from, and here's an example of a set that stuff is splattered across every power, and you really can't skip anything. Only thing you could skip is adaptation, I suppose, if you don't care about that, or if you don't care about hiding, you could get rid of that. But the rest of the stuff you gotta take. I mean, it's like heals, or it's resistance or defense, or whatever. Mez, like your mez protection, I think it's in like 2 or 3 different areas. Anyway, what I'm looking at here is not any of that. I'm looking at those debuffy things. So if we come down here, it looks like in your last, 3 powers. So DNA Siphon, right? PBAOE minor damage click. Foe minus regen. It doesn't have a taunt. That's the typo. That's for the tanker version. Hit points, endurance, and special. So you're getting healing and endurance, and your negative regen to people around you. And then there's a special. So if we go ahead and click on it, you can see what we might get out of this power. So it says you siphon genetic material from the nearby enemies. You do a little bit of damage, which means we can turn this into a damage proccable attack, which, spoiler, I did. Living enemies will provide with small boost of health and endurance. These foes have their regen rate reduced for a short period of time. So we can use this as a debuff of regen, which is really only good for, AVs or EBs, that kind of thing. Defeated enemies provide weaker sample and boost recovery gen a little bit less. Now, if you run in your efficient adaptation, you're going to get better regen and recovery, which I'm probably not going to run that version anyway, but just FYI. Defensive, that's probably the one I'm going to run mostly. This power is going to give you a bonus health per living target, so you can get more healing. If you run your offensive adaptation, the regen debuff is increased. So if you're fighting against, tougher enemies, you can swap over to your offensive adaptation, get the click, and do even more regen debuff. And the numbers are down in here. You can take a look, like 100% chance for minus 100%. So I think that is the... Yeah, so that's the 100% if you're running the offensive adaptation. And then I think... Is this the child effect? PvE. It's hard to say. One of these, it's probably maybe 100% normally, and then it bumps up to 133 if you're running the offensive. Probably something like that. So anyway, it's going to boost you there. So I can see that being a useful little thing, but I also like it for just the ability to damage proc this thing. All right, then the other power I want to focus on as well is genetic corruption, because check it out, guys. Sleep. It's a toggle sleep. An auto hit toggle sleep. And remember, we got sleeps already with our first 3 powers from electrical melee. Kind of see where this could work, right? If I'm running this genetic corruption toggle with this auto hit sleep, then it's a snooze-a-lose for my enemies. Now the challenge is, if you take a look at the magnitude, it's not very high. Mag 2. And it's not like guaranteed sleep either. There's a bunch of different versions of it, because like the other powers, the plus special there depends on what version of adaptation you're running. So if you're running defensive, you get a bonus to all your different types of damage resistance, and you increase your debuff of damage, because it does not just sleep, it has a minus damage, which I'll talk about in a second. So if I'm normally running defensive mode, which is probably what I'm run, I'm leaning more on that debuff, which I think is pretty important. But if I want to run offensive, you can increase the chances of sleeping. So that is where I'm looking at here, all these different potential sleep effects. But if you're running defensive, like I said, you get chances for resistances. You also boost the stock 11.25% damage debuff. Goes up to close to 15% damage debuff if you're running defensive mode. So I like that. I can just stand, and people within 8 feet, up to 10 targets, can be falling asleep. Now, it's not going to affect bosses, but this will sleep minions and lieutenants. And if I find a way to boost the magnitude of it, perhaps a +1 to pump it up to mag 3, that should be enough to potentially put a boss to sleep. How could I get another +1 mag sleep? I wonder. So, let's see if you're starting to put together my crazy idea here. So we got some sleep, we got some minus damage. And then the third and final power I want to talk about in bio armor is another one of these higher level ones, PBAOE. So I believe this is it's a click. It's like DNA siphon. you get absorb and regen. So between DNA Siphon and Parasitic Aura, you've got your clickable heals and plus endurance, plus regen, plus recovery, but it also has minus damage as well. So between your genetic corruption and your DNA Siphon, and now you throw in Parasitic Aura, you can debuff regen, put them to sleep, and minus damage. And the numbers on this are decent as well. And it's going to be affected again by which adaptation. While defensive is on, the power is going to give you a small amount of additional damage absorption and increase the effectiveness of this power's damage debuff. Efficient, this power is going to grant additional regen, etc. So it's got different options again. The damage debuff here is 15% normally, but you can get up to 20% if you're running defensive mode. So I kind of like this idea of getting about 20% here. And then genetic corruption was giving me, what did I say, 15%? Yeah, so if I'm running defensive mode, I can get minus 35% damage just by standing near people and clicking one power. So I'm really liking this idea. And this one, because it takes accurate heal sets, you can also get some damage procs in this guy too. So I'm looking at these powers like DNA Siphon and Parasitic Aura and Genetic Corruption as not just debuffing powers, not just self-sustaining powers, but also potential damagers in a PBAOE range. And then you've also got your Ablative Carapace, which is going to give you absorption or regen. And you've got Boundless Energy, which is a fitness clone. It's like stamina and health combined, but better. So there's a lot going on here for bio armor that I think a lot of people poo-poo and go, it sucks at resistance. It sucks at defense, which it does. But you'll see that I've managed, I think, to put together a survivable build, not by trying to get some workaround and finding defense and all kinds of sets and resistance, all these different sets. I just said F it. I'll get what I can, but I'm going to focus on hit points, regeneration, absorb, this minus damage idea, the sleep stuttering, and then the long game attrition of minus endurance, minus recovery for survivability. And that also is going to play into the third power set that I'm going after, and that's the Mastery. Because like electrical melee, it's got minus endurance attacks, 4 of them. And then there's a pet that also is going to do some minus endurance. Yeah, like, the Moo Bolts, your standard single target attack. It also has minus recovery chances in it, minus endurance in it. It's going to do some damage. Same thing with Zap, your snipe. Same thing with Ball Lightning, PB or targeted AoE, great power, right? Minus 7% endurance, does a bunch of energy damage, 30% chance for 100% recovery debuff. Electric Shackles, this is your hold, also does minus endurance, also does minus recovery. And then your pet, if you choose it, which I did, or at least I think I'm going to stay with him. He's got, Lightning Bolt attack, which has energy damage, minus endurance, minus recovery. Lightning Blast, which has energy damage, minus recovery, minus endurance. Cage of Lightning, which is a hold. Yeah, no, sorry, this is a sleep. So I got another sleep potential option here. Minus endurance, minus recovery. Shocking Bolt. There's the stun. So I can now stun stack. Right, he's got an EMP. That's a minus regen, minus endurance, energy damage. So the pet has a lot of potential attacks with a lot of potential damage that it can do. But of course, it's probably squishy as hell. Yeah, it's like a 20% damage resistance to energy negative. So that's nothing. This guy's going to get crushed if he gets anywhere near anybody. But that's the idea, is to put those combos together to make this interrupter, this stuttering, sleep stuttering, just tempo breaker concept for this stalker. So that's what I'm going for. And if you take a look, I've leaned into that. I've got a lot of minus endurance, or sorry, endurance mods in my attacks. This is similar to what you saw me do with Zealous Warden, where rather than slotting my all my punches with just raw damages, I went ahead and tried to find damage slash utility. So I've got Synapse Shock here and Charged Brawl and Jacob's Ladder, which is going to do some damage. Now it's not completely capped out damage, right? I'm 80 some percent, but it's enough damage, and I'm going after that endurance draining, right? So this guy I've got 110 endurance, 100%, sorry, 122 or whatever the heck that is. Right, it's got lots of 120-ish, right? Lots of minus endurance. So if I start hitting you with these things, you're gonna feel it eventually, right? Let me turn off these incarnates so that we don't fub the true numbers here. So I'm running I have a defensive adaptation on right now, but so recovery minus 166%, endurance is minus 11.6%, sleep mag 2, it's here, let me do the pop up window here. Pop out window. Mag 2 sleep for 7 seconds, right? So that's charge brawl. Jacob's Ladder, recovery, endurance, sleep as well. This power also has a chance to bring endurance back to you. That's the first number, 3.63. Then you got Havoc Punch. I put in a power transfer in that one. And here we got endurance back and get back up to 6. Recovery. This power is more base is higher, minus endurance and Havoc Punch than Charge Brawl. So that's why the number is a little bit higher. And then I've also put that set over here in Chain Induction, minus recovery, minus endurance. So, chances to sleep, chances for the end drain, getting some endurance back, minus recovery, and you're dealing damage. So just keep hitting him with those attacks. Charged Brawl, Havoc Punch, Jacob's Ladder, Chain Induction. That's kind of like your bam, bam, bam over and over on a main target. Plus you throw in your Assassin Strike there, Assassin Shock. So it's a shame they don't have some minus endurance in your assassin attacks. But anyway, right? So I went with those sets. The Synapse Shock in this one, movement speed, resistance to minus recharge. Get this out of the way. Regen, recharge. So I grabbed that in those two locations, and I got the special one with the increased run speed. I want to have some decent mobility, but I also want stuff that had regen hit points. That's why you'll see that in a lot of these powers. Trying to max out as much as I can my regen, maximum hit points, absorb values, etc. Because that's what bioarmor really leans into. Havoc Punch, I've got the power transfer, like I said, regen, max endurance, hit points, accuracy boosting. That's over here in Chain Induction as well. All right, so those are my main attacks. Then you got Assassin Shock, is where I put my Stalker's Guile, the superior version with a chance to hide as well. That's going to give you accuracy, some defense, some damage, some more recharge. I have a lot of recharge in this guy. Then we got Boundless Energy. This is your fitness clone, like I was saying. Let me move that, scroll it down a little bit. So I pretty much slotted it like stamina and health. I went ahead and put 2 Numinas. Got the regen in there, recovery, and then I got the performance shifter with the plus N. So between this power and health and stamina, I was able to pretty much get all those unique special endurance mod and health boosting powers that you got out there, right? I've got Numina's regen, recovery. I got performance shifter plus N. Down here in health, I've got the panacea, hit points, and endurance. I've got the power transfer, chance to heal down here. So I'm going to be constantly popping extra heals and extra endurance just with those 3 powers. Now I probably don't need to put two slots in these down here, but I've got some room. Plus, it gives me some extra bonuses. Got some extra recovery here with the two panaceas. Got some extra regen here with the power transfers. I've got the maximum movement speed. I got some more regen over here. Right, so pow, pow, pow. These things are going off. I have to stay alive somehow because my resistances and my defenses aren't that great. So I need to be able to debilitate the enemies using my attacks and then rely upon healing, regeneration, absorb, that kind of stuff to stay alive. It's going to be a very reactive, proactive set. I can't just sit there passively and take a beating. All right, hardened carapace is my first, I guess, true, defensive power. I do have hide, of course, and I put the luck of the gamblers in there. Got some regen with two slot in it, plus the global recharge boost. But hardened carapace, I've got the unbreakable guard. I got the max HP in that one, and I got a four slotted endurance discount, some resistance, some defense. Environmental modification, I've got two shield walls in there. They're the global plus resistance. And then regen is your two slotted bonus. This is my resistance to mez, and it has some defense to elemental powers in it. So that's what you see with your environmental mod. And then this is one of the ones that's affected by which adaptation you're using. So, like for instance, if offense is active, you'll gain a moderate to hit bonus. All right, build up, pretty standard. Yeah, build up, just single slotted recharge in that one. But it recharge, I got it 33, 34 seconds, duration's 10, so it's not terribly. Plus, I've got come down here in Lightning Rod, I've got the chance for the recharge of the build up from the Assassin's Mark set and Lightning Rod, which I got that 5 slotted, which gives me recovery, accuracy, defense, damage. Lightning Rod is recharging every 28 seconds or so that's pretty good. Then go back up, chain induction, already talk about that. Ablative carapace, this is your absorb and regen. So you click on this, gives you some hit point, gives you, sorry, absorb, shield, and then you got your regen jacks up or jumps up. And I've got the preventative medicine in this one. Resistance to smash lethal, max hit points, resistance to fire cold are your bonuses. Thunderstrike, I threw an avalanche in here. Run speed or minus recharge resistance, I got several of those. Resistance fire cold, recovery, melee defense was the big thing. I was going for 5% with that. DNA siphon, as mentioned, turning this thing into an attack, which is what I did. So it does damage normally, but I threw in 4 of the touch of the Nictus, and I got the chance for energy damage. But with 4 of them, I get max hit points, some accuracy, some healing boosts. And it's going to be a decent way to get some HPs back. Does it show the amount of healing I get? I don't see it anywhere. But anyway, it does have a nice 100% regen debuff. But the other thing I threw in here is I put, just like I did with my Zaus, I put in a chance for a knockdown avalanche in this power. I had that in Touch of Fear with him. I'm putting here in DNA Siphon. So DNA Siphon's my heal, my regen, and also, sorry, it's a heal for me plus endurance. It's a minus regen, but using it as an attack, I'll do some damage. So my damage isn't like huge down here, but it's, what, 82-ish. But it's now a control because it's going to kick off this chance to knock down a few targets every time I click it. And what's the target number on this thing? Let me pull this up. DNA Siphon's target and cap is a 20-foot radius 10. So I can knock down, it's even bigger than Touch of Fear. So it's a wider radius than Touch of Fear was with the same proccable chances. So I could potentially knock down 4, 5, 6 people every time I click this thing if I'm in a big group, which I want to be with this power. So boom, I got that. Lightning Rod, that's going to be my big opener, I think. Genetic corruption. Now here, check out how I got this sucker slotted. This one is, I'm kind of proud of this one, to be honest with you. Now let me do the pop-out window. So I put the Sandman in here, the chance to heal. And this thing actually kicks off, what is it, 180 or something like that? So yeah, it's a 181. So check this out. I've got the 181 popping from that. I've got, let's see, is there a chance to heal this one? I forget if there's a chance to heal. No, I've got the chance for endurance here and boundless energy and regen. Stamina, this is going to pop the 60 whatever heal with the power transfer. And then Panacea is popping the other heal, which is like 65. So anyway, you're going to see me doing 61s, 65, 181s, just heals, plus then my DNA siphons heals all the time. Those numbers can keep, flying. It's kind of spamming heals on myself. And I don't have to do much for some of this. Then the other thing I threw in there, check this out, I put in a Fortunatus Hypnosis. Not because I wanted to sleep. That's the funny thing. So let me scroll this down a little bit more. So Fortunatus Hypnosis, 3 slot, it gives me recovery and some more damage resistance. But I put the chance to placate in there. So while I'm just standing in and amongst my enemies fighting them, that'll activate my outward facing debuffs. So genetic corruption will kick off in a fight, give me some healing, right? And chance to placate enemies on top of that. So it's got a mag 2 placate for 8 seconds, it's showing. And I've taken placate itself. So that's my other fun little strategy I'm going to use to kind of this whole stuttering idea that I have. I can also throw placates out there, just standing in among enemies. They'll be potentially slept by genetic corruption because it's got a that mag 2 sleep I was talking about, right? Sleep. And it's got the placate now. So sleep, wake up, placated, placated, sleep. I'm punching them, waking up. Oh, they went to sleep because I just punched them with a sleep power. They're getting drained. They're healing me. I'm minus damaging them too because they're standing next to me. You see how this is all going to start to add together? And I have some defense. I have some resistance. I've got the knockdown when I come jamming in there. I've got the knockdown from DNA siphon. So it's this layered approach to all these things. It's just going to constantly disrupt and debilitate the enemies. They're not going to know what hit them. Because I was going to, jam in there and just start going to town, shocking them, draining them, bringing the pain, sleeping them, debuffing their damage like a third, placating them. Like this placate recharges, my big placate recharges every 22 seconds and it lasts for 20 seconds. So that's just about perma. Combined with this placate, it is parasitic aura. Turning this into attack as well. I threw Touch of the Nictus, 4 of those, chance for negative energy damage, hit points, accuracy, healing, and then I kind of rounded it out with an efficacy adapter just to get the overall numbers to look pretty decent. Boom. This is your big regen absorb as well, plus recovery and more foe minus damage. So you dive in there with, let's say, lightning rod. You can then throw a couple punches around, hit him with DNA siphon, damage, get your heal, knock him down again. You can hit him with parasitic aura, get some regen, get some absorb, get some more damage. They're taking minus damage debuff from that. They're taking the minus damage debuff from your genetic corruption. They're sleeping from genetic corruption. They're being placated by genetic corruption. They're healing you with genetic corruption. They're not going to stand a chance. Maneuvers, I grab that again just to give me a little bit extra defense. I almost went like combat jumping, but the numbers on maneuvers are like double what CJ gives you. So I took that, threw a Luck of the Gambler, double slotted it with Luck of the Gambler's regen bonus. Moo bolts, 4 slotted Thunderstrike gave me some ranged defense and recovery, some more accuracy. Zap, 3 slotted that with Sting of the Manicore plus a Thunderstrike to round out the numbers. Regen, more range defense. Ball lightning, got a 5 slot with artillery, regen, defense, damage, accuracy. Now here's my conundrum currently, because on the live build, I have the Moo Adept with a Call to Arms 4 slotted, and I'm getting the recharge bonus. But I think I might pull it. Not that I don't like the pet, but just from Zeus's experiment that I did last time. And if you haven't seen Zeus's experiment, you got to go and check that video out. Go to my playlist. I don't care if you like, subscribe, whatever. Go check out the Zeus video though on my playlist on my channel. In this Stalkers folder there, playlist, and take a look at what I did with his and why I went with his Night Widow pet. But in his experiment, I only got like 10% damage. Not even like 5% of his damage was from the pet, so it was pretty anemic. So I'm concerned that Stalker pets might not put out a lot of damage overall. I'm not exactly sure why, but the big difference here is I don't have much of a way to protect my Mew pet like I did my Night Widow pet with Zeus. He had more defenses and buffing. Dead Cell doesn't have any of that. So how long is this guy going to last in practical terms? And if they're doing anemic offense, yeah, I'd love to have all those abilities that it brings to the table, but if I don't have a way to keep it safe, then I don't see what purpose it is. I might. That's why I have electric shackles in here, because I can use it as another attack. It was something else found myself missing. I was playing with Dead the other day, and I was noticing I kind of felt I was missing an attack in my range chain, because I had, Mew bolts, I had zap. Those are my only 2 single target attacks. I hesitate to throw ball lightning at a single runner, so I'd like to have a third, bang 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 attack chain. And if I do pick it up, I'm looking at Basilisk's gaze here, 4 slotted it. That'll give me some defense, which is always nice, recovery, and even better recharge. So the Basilisks is a better set than the Call to Arms and the Moo Adept. But if the Moo Adept actually does damage and contributes, then he'll be superior to this build than Shackles, because he has controls himself. He's got a stun, he's got a hold, EMP, he's got a sleep, he's got end drain. So it's kind of up in the air. I gotta test it out. But this is kind of where I think I'm gonna end up going. Placate, hasten, level 50s in there, plus 5 them with boosters. Enough said. All right, then the last thing about the build I want to talk about is this. Then take a look at the total numbers, and then we'll take a look at the incarnates I've got penciled in right now. So here's my numbers, right? Let's see. Let's turn off some of these things. Let's see, DNA siphon's off. Parasitic aura is off. Hasten's on. Maneuvers is on. Genetic corruption's on. Ablative carapace. Let's turn that off. Adaptation is on. I've got defensive checked. Boundless is good. Hardened carapace is good. Environmental is... All right, so the rest of these are fine. All right, so here are my just raw numbers, right? Nothing great. I've got, 30-ish% energy negative. Okay, 30-ish% fire cold. You're going to rely upon a lot of these type defenses more so than your positional melee, and range is not that great. AoE is pretty solid. That's mostly from hide, though. So defenses overall aren't going to do much, and I don't have a real great way to boost them. I am taking agility, which will bump them a little bit. So when I activate my agility alpha, this is what I look like in level 50 stuff. Okay, so, not bad. 40-ish% here. Negative energy. Negative damage is just not a thing, really. So energy is the only one that's even worth mentioning. Fire's a little bit more common. Cold is not common at all. So, energy and negative are so-so. AoE is pretty good. But that's it for defense. And then you go to the resistance side of things. I got about 50% resistance smash lethal. And then that's it. I mean, toxic is a rare damage type. That doesn't mean anything. The rest of these are nothing to write home about. So overall, those numbers are terrible. They're not going to keep you alive. Now, where I am going to make up some ground is in my other stuff. So I've got my recovery and drain numbers are awesome. right? And this is more than 3 to 1. I always talk about this. I want at least a 3 to 1, if not better. I've got that. Regen, though, is where I'm going to start making some money because I can, boost that up with, if there's ablative carapace, I activate that. My regen's up into 500s now. And I don't think it shows it, but DNA siphon. Let's see if I click on these other ones. If that changes any of the numbers. No, but I mean, I'll be hitting DNA siphon and parasitic aura a bunch. My recharge is really good at 115 because hasten is, I think, recharging as it expires. Recharge is 135, duration is 120. So hasten is pretty much perma with the way I've got things slotted. The other thing I want to show you guys is the advanced totals. Because here, regen, there's my regen. My max HP is 1700. Stalker cap is 2000. Now I'm going to get pretty close to that because I've got rebirth that I've taken. So when I click rebirth, I got the max HP and the heal. So if I click that, it punches me up to my cap. All right, Stalker cap 2094. Or sorry, I'm capped at 2088. So yeah, so the rebirth caps my max HP. And I went with that side because I have a lot of regen, so I figure I can maintain a high level of HP if I go that way rather than more regen. All right, and then endurance, max, all this stuff is really solid. So that's what I'm looking at with my alpha and my destiny. I went with, again, this is something I'm kind of hesitating on. I currently penciled in preemptive interface. This is the one that gives you minus endurance and minus recovery. And you can stack this up to 4 times on a target from, I think, 4 different attacks. So pretty much I can get minus 20% recovery. That's the big thing I want to get out of this thing. And it's got the minus endurance over time, just bleeding. So that and some energy damage is what I'm looking at this power for. So it can help with all of my attacks where I was already doing some minus endurance, some minus recovery. Here's ball lightning. Now I've got even more minus endurance and more minus recovery. It's also going to boost the damage because you're gonna DOT energy. But I was also looking, I think paralytic it was. Paralytic is the one that has minus damage and minus defense. I don't really care about the minus defense, but the minus damage would be kind of nice. So I can use that to stack for more survivability. So it's kind of, how do I want to build this guy? Do I want to make him more survivable or more debuffing? I lean towards the debuffing because that's kind of the concept rather than me sort of being, a tank. So that's why I want preemptive. Between preemptive and agility, they're both kind of helping me with the same thing. Endurance mod is what agility is boosting. Preemptive is giving me more minus endurance, more minus recovery. So if you start looking at my numbers with those things activated, I'm going to be draining some decent amounts of. This is from Charged Brawl. So when I activate agility, you can see what I'm doing. So here's my interfaces, -5, -1% endurance and recovery, and that can proc up to 4 times on a target. This is the endurance I regained on myself. And then minus recovery, minus endurance is -220, or sorry, 210, 211, whatever it takes. 220, 221. 14-7 endurance. Right, this is one punch. So I hit you with that. Hit you with Havoc Punch. All right, start adding it up. Like about 15% endurance, 22. There's 37-ish. Your recovery's in the toilet. Hit you with Jacob's Ladder. There's another 15. Throw in a chain induction. I mean, I just siphoned away about 2/3, 3/4 of your endurance right there. So that's kind of the idea. Now I'm going to be constantly cycling these powers in here, so that's why I went with preemptive. Then Ion. Everybody loves Ion, but I went with the side radial that has the minus endurance and minus recovery. And the hold. So some more control, some more debuff. Why not? So throw that puppy out there. Minus 35% endurance, minus 100% recovery. Mag 4 hold for 12 seconds. That could work and stack nicely with my shackles if I take that. Now here's my other fun little game. I wink nudged this to you guys earlier. Remember I was talking about, oh, what was it? Was genetic consumption? Genetic corruption. Genetic consumption. Yeah, so check this out. So this is the sleep aura, right? Let me move my face here. I took control core. This gives you the chance of the +1 mag. So if you take a look, see what's happening there. It's giving me another +1 mag sleep. So if I go ahead and take this, combined with its native 2 mag, I can be hitting, it's a 33% chance, so it's not guaranteed, but I can be spiking mag 3 sleeps to everybody around me. That will be high enough to sleep a boss. So all I need to do is walk into a group, and in the middle of combat, minions are sleeping, lieutenants are sleeping, bosses are sleeping. Now it's not permanent, right? But it's this quick snooze, and then they wake up again because they take some damage or whatever, because maybe you punched them, but then you're hitting them with your other sleeps from your electric melee, and you're proccing that placate from the Fortunata purple, and you got your normal placate you're throwing out there. So you're just combining all that stuff to just create this stuttering, stopping effect on the enemies. So yeah, I've got the Banished Pantheon lore pets because the Defiler, the support, has Empowering Burst here. Is it Empowering Burst or Enervating? Yeah, it's got the, oh yeah, so here it is, Enervating Storm minus damage. So I think that was the main thing I wanted. It has regen recovery for you. So anyway, that's going to help me. Minus damage. That was kind of the big thing I was going for it. Is it? Yeah. And then the Ravager has the minus regen on its attack, Frigid Enervation. So anyway, those are the things I was looking for in that pet combo. So there you go, ladies and gents. That covers the build for my good friend Dead Cell here. So let's pop back over to the finale here. So I took that build, took that concept, fed it into Kathy, and I said to do the final analysis on it for synergy between these two power sets. Is this combo of power sets going to work for what I was trying to accomplish with the support stalker? So here's what she came up with once I gave her the final build. It says Dead Cell's build excels at locking down and crippling groups of enemies through powerful and continuously stacked sleep effects, intense endurance recovery drain, and supplemental enemy damage and regen reduction. Electric melee, heavy emphasis on minus endurance, charge, brawl, havoc punch, chain induction, Jacob's ladder, all applies small to moderate minus end effects. So she's taken all of my I took the mids build itself and fed it to her, so all the stats and all the sets and stuff. AoE sleep and stun layering. Jacob's ladder includes a cone sleep component. Thunderstrike has a PB AoE stun. I don't think it's the stun is PB AoE. I think the knockdown's PB AoE, but the stun is, I think, just the primary target. Lightning Rod, massive AoE knockdown. So that's going to synergize stun, sleeps, your disorient groups, etc. Bio armor, you got the genetic corruption, AoE sleep, the minus damage, DNA siphon, parasitic aura, on demand healing, absorb, minus regen debuffs, high regen and absorb stacking. They're going to help Dead Cell's ability to operate inside the mob safely. So he's going to be in melee, whereas debuffs are going to do their work. And then Mew Mastery, Ball Lightning, Mew Bolts, Zap. They give AoE damage, Ranged minus endurance, some control effects as well with the writhe, and if I take the hold, electric shackles, the Mu adept, they're having holding, sleep, disorient, AoE holds, depends on which one I go with. So lots of things here that I'm going to be able to add together to accomplish my goal, I think. Team utility, I then said, well, hey, how is this going to work with a team? Dead Cell suppresses enemy threats through Stutter-Lock control and energy denial, offering layered crowd disruption and team safety through resource manipulation. So in other words, minus recovery, so minus regen. Crowd suppression, enemy control, lightning rod, thunderstrike, ball lightning. You're going to get knockdown, AoEs, damage, disruption. Jacob's ladder, genetic corruption. You got sleeping going on there in large numbers. Weaker foes, constant recovery loops is the idea. Enemy debilitation, minus endurance, minus recovery. This persistent debuffing being attributed to them. DNA siphon has the minus regen. So if you have bosses, high health targets like AVs, it's going to hurt them. Genetic corruption, you got the passive AoE minus damage debuff. That's going to soften incoming damage for the whole team. Sustained survivability tools, parasitic aura, DNA siphon. He's got healing. He gets absorbed. They scale up with more enemies. Some of these powers do. High uptime on the regen, the max HP, the absorb procs are constantly firing. He's got self-sustaining powers keeping him in the fight, and he doesn't need some team healer to run around and keep him alive. The boundless energy, going to keep him from running out of endurance, even if the fight goes on and on. Positioning based team value, he's going to function best, according to Kathy, and I agree, in the middle of enemy clusters, drawing attention, softening targets, softening threats before they can act. It's going to help the team set up spike damage or power chains by creating openings through the stagger and the draining. So as things are sleeping, are stunned, are drained, are placated, whatever, that's going to set him up for just being crushed by his allies. Utility rating, 8.5 out of 10. It's actually a half a point less than what she gave Zaus. A debilitation engine with, I like that, a debilitation engine with strong passive safety. Dead Cell doesn't buff directly. Instead, he protects the team by shutting enemies down before they act, leaving more room for allies to operate efficiently in safety. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the point of this guy. We'll see if it works, though. Gameplay strategy. Dead Cell plays as a debilitating predator who slides into the enemy's guts, collapses their systems, and leaves them twitching and drained. That is so brutal. His strategy is less about tanking and more about tempo control, field manipulation, and targeted disruption. Here's her suggestions for engagement flow. Open with Lightning Rod for AoE, knockdown, and field control. I agree with that. Follow with Thunderstrike to stun survivors and press the advantage. Again, I think Thunderstrike only applies to the main target, not everybody around it, but it does do knockdown to everybody else. Then suggesting activating offensive adaptation to unleash the PBO sleep and the damage aura. The sleep is always on, so is the damage aura. Offensive adaptation boosts the sleep's duration. So I don't know if I would want to. Do I really need the sleep to be longer? I think people are going to be getting woken up. It's more of it if it keeps going rather than how long it goes. So that's why I think I want to go with the defensive adaptation because that's going to boost the minus damage. I think it's going to keep me more safe than boosting the duration of sleeps. Tactical control. Using Jacob's Ladder, charge Brawl and Havoc Punch to sleep and exhaust elite targets. Okay, that makes sense. Keep pounding on them. Ball Lightning and Zap keeps groups staggered and drained. Ball Lightning will keep a group. Zap is just going to be a one shot, so that's more for a runner. Summon the Mu Adept and add Sleep Disorient AoE holds. So suggestion there is just to dump your pet in the middle of the fight once you're in there, which sounds like a good idea if I keep them. Survival and Sustain. Parasitic Aura, DNA Siphon provide burst healing and regen debuffs. Efficient slotting and energy aura endurance tools, not energy aura. I think it means the endless or boundless energy, not energy aura. Allow continuous pressure. So yeah, what she's saying is that I can keep fighting because my endurance and recovery and stuff are great. but that's the wrong power she's referencing. Remain near packs to maintain aura impact while avoiding direct focus. So that makes sense. So in other words, you're kind of kiting the exterior of the group. You're not staying at range. You're not necessarily right in the middle where the tank is. Let them do their tanky stuff. But if you kind of patrol the perimeter of the main fight, you can keep things in your aura without taking massive, strikes on you directly. Let the tank or brute do that. Gameplay strategy rating 9 out of 10. Dead Cell soft locks enemy mobs through sleep chaining and relentless endurance suppression. He is a momentum killer, not a finisher, thriving in chaos, feeding off clusters and unraveling enemy formations from within. That sounds cool. I think I can do that. Your power lies in breaking enemy tempo and never letting them get it back. That's a quote from Dead Cell himself. Final analysis conclusion. The debuff, the control types, where they're coming from, and what's the star rating 1 to 5. This whole sleep stuttering control idea, getting that from the electric melee, the bio armor, the Mu adaptive, that's in there. The control hybrid, 5 out of 5. Endurance drain, minus recovery, the debuffing, electric melee, the Mu mastery, the preemptive, 4 out of 5. You just don't have guaranteed minus recovery is the problem. It's all chances. Damage debuff, the minus damage, bio armor has that. 4 out of 5 stars because you got a couple different sources and you can boost it with your defensive adaptation. If I were to get the paralytic interface, that'd probably be a 5 out of 5. Crowd control, the holding, the stunning, the knocking down, electric melee, Mu mastery, got a bunch of that as well. 4 out of 5 stars. The minus regen, only 3 out of 5. You got DNA, Siphon has it. And if you take the Mu pet, he's got the EM pulse that'll deliver it as well. But if I don't take it, then that's more like maybe even a 2 out of 5 stars. Dead Cell's kit flows like a pressure circuit. He opens with a burst discharge, then sustains control through a layered system of sleep, stun, and minus endurance debuffs that short circuit momentum. The final verdict on this build, according to Kathy, built for tactical attrition and tempo control, Dead Cell excels at soft control stacking, endurance denial, and recovery sabotage. His synergy between bioelectric suppression and layered crowd control makes him a formidable team disruptor, weakening enemies before they can act and supporting allies through indirect dominance. Well, there you guys have it. That is the end of our show. That is the plan for our good friend Dead Cell. All right, that's it. What's coming up next? We got to run some solos, record that, and analyze the data. And then I'm going to run some team action, record that, analyze the data, and report it back to you. Does this guy hold up under pressure, or am I just making shit up? All right, everybody, have a good one. Peace out.